Hello, please let me see your ticket stubs for the double-edged double bill. Tonight we see Cate Blanchett in an ocean of 8 Hannas. Each week, Adam Thomas and Thomas Mariani will come to the table to discuss the randomly selected yin and yang of a double feature. Then, both will have to pick a number between 1 and 10 in order to seal their fates for the next episode. One will have 2 good movies, the other 2 bad ones. Let the chaos begin. And I am Thomas Mariani, and not some sort of suspicious part of a heist scheme.
And I am Adam Thomas, and not just a real ball-breaking CIA agent. But if I was, I couldn't tell you.
I mean, if you did, we'd be dead.
Yeah. Well, you would be.
Yes, and to all 10 of our listeners.
All dead.
Welcome to the Double-Edged Double Bill. This week, in honor of Cate Blanchett, who is an actress that I think all of us kind of admire to some degree, is going to be in a movie called Where'd You Go Bernadette, which, as we kind of talked about last week, is a movie I'm not sure how they're advertising, why they're advertising it the way they are.
I legit don't know what the movie is. Like, is it a comedy? Is it a mystery? Is it a thriller? Is it all 3? I have no idea.
Yeah, it's Richard Linklater, which is the sliver of interest, because he hasn't done too many bad movies. He's not above it, though. He's done some stinkers. So that looks odd, but I think both of us are pretty big fans of Cate Blanchett in general, Adam. Like, what was the first time you remember seeing Cate Blanchett?
Oh, God, dude. That's a good question. Probably Lord of the Rings, to be honest. Or at least the first one that pops in there. I mean, I'm sure I saw her before that, but Lord of the Rings was the first one where when she came in things afterwards, I'm like, oh yeah, that's Galadriel from Lord of the Rings.
Right, and she's really important to those movies, because that was probably the first time for me as well, because she's the one that does that big intro at the beginning. She does that voiceover, which like helps sell the whole world, pretty much. Just like the kingdoms of men and all this other stuff. Even though after Fellowship of the Ring, she just kind of stands around. And especially in the Hobbit movies, you're just like, hey fam, bye.
I have such a huge issue with those movies that we won't get into on this episode. Maybe one day.
No.
But
I mean, I think the first time I recognized her, though, was like just less of like a weird ethereal fantasy creature that she kind of is, no offense, but she is almost like a human hybrid with like the Gelflings from the Dark Crystal in a way that makes her sort of just otherworldly in a fascinating way. The first time I ever really, I think, realized her talents was with The Aviator, when she played Katharine Hepburn. And arguably one of the best examples of, like, someone who's an actress playing a real-life actress that we all know very well.
Yeah, and arguably the best part of that movie as well, to be honest.
I mean, I don't know, I really dig that movie.
I like it too, but it's a little long in the tooth.
A Martin Scorsese movie long? Never. Especially that, like, Blanchett, despite how, like I said, she kind of has a very distinctive look that makes her stand out from a lot of sort of actresses of her age and ilk, she also feels like a chameleon. She almost just, like, disappears.
I agree, which is so funny because, and honestly, at least for me, she's not the best at accents, especially like American accents. But it doesn't even matter because she's so fucking good. Like, I think both of our movies tonight are a good example of not that great of an accent, but she just sells the part so well you don't even care.
Even though the one of them is her native Australian accent.
I don't know. That just throws my whole theory to shit. I honestly didn't even know she was Australian. I thought she was British.
Well, right, because you would have figured, given how pale she is, like, how could you survive in the outback?
How can anyone survive in the goddamn outback?
Well, that's true, yes, unless you're Crocodile Dundee.
Dundee, right.
Unless you're Paul Hogan, you probably can't survive. Let's get into our features, because at the end of our last episode, we picked a good and a bad feature based on you had 2 bad movies, I had 2 good movies, and randomly selected were the 2 features. First, we're going to talk about Ocean's 8, which was your bad pick. And then we'll talk about my good pick, which was Hanna. Let's go and get started then with Ocean's 8.
Debbie Ocean, convicted felon. Her brother, Danny Ocean, more convicted felon.
Ooh. In 3.5 weeks, the Met will be hosting its annual ball, and we are going to rob it.
Is it genetic? Are the whole family like this?
$16.5 million in each of your bank accounts.
It's legit, right?
Absolutely not.
Game on.
Why do you need to do this?
Because it's what I'm good at.
Ocean's 8, only in cinemas.
So, Ocean's 8 came out June 8th, 2018. Was a spin-off of the Oceans franchise, which technically started with an old movie from the 60s that starred the Rat Pack of Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., all those guys, in what is basically just like a write-off so that they could go off to like drink and smoke.
There's no question they're all liquored up the entire shoot.
Oh yeah, and not to mention, I'm sure what the pitch was just Frank's like, hey, let's go to Vegas and on studio dime. But Frank, we need some kind of like plot. We steal from the casino? Sure, cut, print, let's fly away. Let's go.
Listen, this is what we're gonna do, baby. Me and my friends are gonna go out drinking, and you're gonna film it. Put the story to it. And they don't give a shit.
Pretty much. But then Steven Soderbergh then took that movie and made a good movie out of it with Ocean's 11. And proceeded to make 2 sequels after that. And then they made Ocean's 8, which is a spin-off that has a mostly female cast. There's only a couple cameos from people from older movies, one of which makes sense, the other one feels very tacked on. I don't know if you can tell which one I'm talking about.
I'm pretty sure I get your drift.
Adam, I was very curious to hear of all of Cate Blanchett's filmography, why was this one a bad one for you? Why didn't you like this one?
Well, because I really, really, really enjoy Ocean's 11. 12, not so much. 13, I'd argue, is better than 12. But I really love Ocean's 11. But I'm also really into heist movies. And I honestly think that I would have liked this movie more if it wasn't tied into the Ocean's franchise. For them to give the Danny Ocean character such an unceremonious death, and he's got this sister that is never mentioned across 3 films, who's in the same profession he is and just as good, if not better. It feels so forced and tacked on to me. I'm not a Sandra Bullock fan, per se. Like, I think she's okay in this. I think the bright example in this movie might be Awkwafina. She's fantastic, and from what I understand, she's just getting better and better. I mean, the plot is so ridiculous. It's so stupid. With the glasses that mimic... it's so out there and high-tech in a way that it's like, this could never work. Like, it's unbelievable to me. It just has nothing to do with that. It's a female cast, and I just think it's it could have maybe used another pass at the script. I just feel it's like a rushed production.
Well, I saw this last year. I remember liking it. It's just like, it's a pleasant, fine movie. And then, I rewatched it now, and I really thought long and hard about it, and I feel the exact same way I did the first time. It's fine. I don't really see putting this as like a bad movie for any of these people on this, dais. These actresses do what they're asked of, which maybe isn't a lot in most cases. Some go a bit above and beyond. I'd argue sure. Awkwafina, I agree, I think is quite funny. I'd argue also Anne Hathaway's really fucking funny in this movie.
Anne Hathaway almost steals the movie. She honestly does. Yeah.
That bit at the end was just like, James Gordon's like, I love my job. Oh, I love my job too.
Oh, and that fucking guy. I don't like that guy either.
I don't like him usually. I thought he was fine in this. I don't think it's nothing like that impressive. Like, this whole movie is just basically very, like, mildly chuckle-worthy to me. Like, that's how I would describe it. Like, the whole time, I'm just like, I'm mildly amused consistently.
You gotta figure, I'm tasked with picking a bad Cate Blanchett movie, and the problem with that is, she's always good in everything she's in.
Right.
So I tried to pick a movie that, even though she is good in it, that I didn't personally connect with. And this was one of the only ones. I mean, it was really hard on this one, because she is one of the greatest actresses working today. But like I said, I didn't connect with this. And at the fucking end, where they get, what's his name back from the little contortionist guy.
Oh yeah, his name is Quinn Sabo as the Amazing Yen.
There he is, Yen. I'm like, what? Come on, really?
No, I agree. I thought that was tacked on, especially because the movie had pretty much ended at that point, and then they just have this odd cameo. Like, I think the Elliot Gould one is the one that I think is fine. He just comes in, just like,
awesome.
Hey, come on, sometimes it's better not to do the job. Hey, all right, bye. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's all you really need. You could have also had anybody, like Matt Damon could have cycled in, and even like with the Danny Ocean thing, they hint throughout the whole thing that's like, he's probably not dead. This is
he's not dead. Sure, he's not dead, but still.
Yeah.
You could have got Affleck or Scott Conn. They're not doing anything.
I don't want Casey Affleck to get more work.
Well,
Two,
especially in a cast of women, that's probably not the
yeah,
best
probably
idea.
not a good idea. No. And then Scott Conn, I don't think they had to like dig him out from parts unknown. But then again, for me, also, I actually hadn't seen, aside from Ocean's 11, I hadn't seen any of the other Ocean's movies until before this movie was coming out. I watched them. I would put this probably just around 3 for me. Ocean's 13, like it's around that same place for me, where it's like it's fine, it's kind of forgettable. I don't remember much of either of those movies necessarily, but I had a pleasant time watching either of them. I would watch this in any day over 12.
Yeah. Oh, well, no, me too. Absolutely. 12 is atrocious.
Yeah.
The Bruce Willis, Julia Roberts joke. Oh.
Terrible. Yeah, one of the most self-indulgent bullshit sequences in any movie.
So egotistical.
It's so bad.
So ridiculous. But I will say, Vincent Cassel doing the breakdancing through the lasers is pretty cool.
Oh no, he's the good thing, and I'm glad he's the only thing they brought back from 12 in 13, and that was worth it. Yeah. But I'll say, speaking about the other movies, I think the biggest crime of this movie has nothing to do with any of the cast members. It has everything to do with, I think, Gary Ross is a very mediocre director. And coming off of Steven Soderbergh, who's so stylish with all those movies.
What other things has he done?
So Gary Ross's other stuff, there was Pleasantville, Seabiscuit, The First Hunger Games, and Free State of Jones.
Oh, good lord. Jeez. So, yeah, okay. He's not that good.
It's pretty much a big swath of mediocrity. And I think that's the big thing here is this is shot like a very typical studio comedy. Which, like, you mentioned, like, the whole female casting. That was also my biggest issue with, like, the Ghostbusters movie. That most recent one. It's just, it had nothing to do with any of, like, that female cast. And I thought the script was alright. It had everything to do with, it's such a flatly made movie.
Right.
I'm not that interested in it. And it's definitely the same thing here, especially when you have sort of the big heist sequences going on. It sticks out so blandly. It's just like this is, I'm instantly forgetting shots as they're coming past me.
Oh, I completely agree. You know, and the thing is, it's like, while watching this, I'm literally going, wait, why are they doing this? Wait, what point does this serve? It's not that I couldn't follow it, but like you said, maybe the way it was filmed, maybe the way it was played out or anything, I lost interest halfway through the movie. Like, I get it, I'm going to rob these famous jewels or whatever. Okay, cool. Like I said, it all just felt unsensical to me. But as we talked about before, and even our heist episode, I love heist movies. I fucking really, really enjoy them. And this one just did not grab me at all.
No, they definitely lean more on being a comedy, which is to say on the cast members who, like I said, I think do fine. Like, there are other people here, like Mindy Kaling, I thought, fine.
Mm-hmm. Elena Bottom's always good, but wasted.
I know, the biggest waste for me, though, is Sarah Paulson, because she gets nothing funny to do, and her whole character is just like, oh, hey, I'm a, ignored housewife who has some kind of weird side gig where I buy shit and resell it, and I set everything up for other people to do cool stuff, but I don't do anything cool.
I'm out of the life. Well, it can make you a lot of money. Okay, I'm back in.
Yeah.
Like,
and she's such a phenomenal actress, and she doesn't get to do films that often anyway, 'cause she's always on fucking TV doing something. And it's such a bummer when you, misuse her like this. A better example of a Sarah Paulson, Cate Blanchett collaboration, the alternate choice I had, Carol. Both are quite well used.
Still haven't seen. Gotta watch it.
Yes,
but then the thing with even fucking Rihanna, it's like, so they give her this whole story arc about her sister, and everything. You don't care.
I mean, I found that part funny. I thought that was a fun back and forth between the two of them, and then
in the one scene.
Yeah, I thought that was. I wish there was more of it. I agree. I think it's just a problem of they had to have this sort of thing where they have to have literally 8 people, and just that you didn't really know how to use all 8 people. If you had done an Ocean's 5,
I could see that.
Yeah,
or even 6.
Or even 6, right? Yeah, because definitely the biggest standouts would have to be I agree with you that I'm not usually the biggest Sandra Bullock fan, but I found her to be a fun George Clooney stand-in for this part, and her and Cate Blanchett have a solid Brad Pitt style rapport. I think, especially, I love the bit where they're in the restaurant talking about oh, this is a proposal, honey? Oh, I don't have a diamond yet, baby. All this kind of stuff back and forth. I think they did a pretty good job, bouncing off each other quite well. And not to mention, Cate Blanchett's biggest thing is say some quippy things and also wear incredibly amazing outfits. Every scene I have a different outfit.
Well, you're exactly right, though. That's exactly the dynamic that Clooney and Brad Pitt had. Mm-hmm. No, I will say this, as far as sort of adopting the ilk of the Danny Ocean character to play his sister, she did pretty good. She's real snappy. She's a cool customer. I think it being related to the Ocean's franchise kind of hurt the movie. I don't think it needed to be. I think if you did an all-female heist movie, I think maybe it would stand a little bit better on its own legs. I don't like that they relied on something else.
I mean, I guess, but it's part of that problem where it's like, oh, hey, we don't necessarily want to do sequels, reboots, and all this other stuff. But then again, most audiences would want to see like something that somewhat connects to something they're aware of. Like, I don't think this movie would have made nearly $300 million if it wasn't connected to Oceans.
This movie made $300 million?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, because it's an incredibly pleasant movie to just, like, watch, leave, and forget about, and have a fun time with. It's total summer fluff. That's what this thing is. In a way that I found, like, perfectly serviceable, and I didn't need to see it again. I would have never gone out of my way to see this again after I saw it in the theater. And then again, I'm not also the hugest Oceans fan either. Like, I think 11's a good movie. But at the same time, I'm not drawn to, like, really go back to it. If I want a Steven Soderbergh heist movie, I'll go to Logan Lucky again over any of the Oceans things.
Which I still haven't seen either.
It's really fucking great.
I know! Everybody tells me, even my brother's like, dude, you gotta watch it. I'm like, oh, I know, and I just haven't watched it. Well, you got to figure, when Oceans came out, Oceans came out, what, like 2001? Holy hell. So I was 18 when that movie came out. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching it, I'm like, these are like the coolest guys ever. It was just such a cool movie. Like the soundtrack, the dialogue, the snappiness of it, everything. It felt like a new Rat Pack sort of movie. And I fucking fell in love with it, and I still really love it. But yeah, the sequels are not great. And then, like I said, this one, I think I had higher hopes for this one because the sequels were so bad. And I just felt kind of like you said, it's fine, I guess. Like, it's a movie. It exists. I'm never going to watch it again. Do I hate myself for watching it like some of the other movies we watch on the show? No. But, it's there.
Like, I was looking up that, like, Blanchett herself and even Mindy Kaling were kind of talking about the lukewarm reception of this movie being because of, like, some of these recent trends that admittedly are a real thing. Of, like, white male trolls completely downplaying something like a Ghostbusters or something like Captain Marvel that even happened around the time they changed their whole fucking system about it. I completely agree, but at the same time, I think the reception of this one, like, I don't remember as much of an outcry against this. I think because man babies weren't so protective of the Oceans franchise.
Well, maybe, but my thing is, the material has to be good, though. Mm-hmm. I mean, for a lot of people, yeah, unfortunately, it's all women, it's crap. Well, take it easy. If it's a good movie, it's a good movie. See, I have a lot of problems with Captain Marvel. I didn't really care for Ghostbusters, but like we already talked about, for the same reasons we already mentioned. But there's some fun in it. I don't think it deserved the hate it got. But this one was like kind of like a fart in the wind. Like, it came out, it made its money, and then it was gone. I don't remember that, like you said, that big of an issue about this one. But the thing, if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. Who gives a shit who's in it?
Yeah, and plus even then, like, there were plenty of, like, female and non-white dude critics who were just kind of like, to the movie anyway. And I think it just speaks more to that we need kind of like a diverse range of critics anyway than just a bunch of, like, and mainly it's a dominated field of, like, white dudes. Like, yeah, like Justin Chang, who works for the LA Times, where he argued that film criticism does need to be diverse, but we negate the possibility of sympathetic imagination when we assume that someone's particular affinity for a work of art will be dictated in advance by specifics of race, gender, or age. Which is true. It's just something that...
100%, yeah.
And if you're wondering why I brought all of this up, it's because there's not a lot to talk about with fucking Ocean's 8, Adam.
No, you're 100% right. There really isn't. In fact, like, I picked it, and then I rewatched it, I'm like, oh, no. Like, there's not a lot going on in this movie. But I do want to reiterate, like, I didn't pick it because I feel it's a bad movie. It's not a terrible movie. It's just a blah movie. But to go through Cate Blanchett's fucking filmography and pick out a really bad movie is hard because she's, like I said, she's always good in it. And so, I mean, really, it was this or Bandits, and they're both not terrible.
Well, and plus, like, the really bad ones are more just, like, you tend to be, like, really overlong, and ones that we don't necessarily want to talk. Like, we talked briefly about, like, oh, what about Indiana Jones, the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? It's like...
Don't want to watch it again. Don't want to talk about it.
No.
The Hobbit movies, I feel if we're going to talk about that, this wasn't the topic to do it for.
No, the second Elizabeth.
Yeah. Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
Speaking of heist movies that would have involved George Clooney, Monuments Men would have been one, and that's just a complete bore fest of a movie.
That I completely forgot that even existed.
Yep.
To be honest with you. So let's just go. I'll go into my final thoughts then on this one. I think our lady of topic, Cate Blanchett, is fine in it. I think most of the cast is fine in it. I don't think anyone's terrible, but I think some are just mediocre at best. I think it's an okay heist movie. I do not think it should be tagged with the Ocean's title. I completely think that if Sandra Bullock was not related to Danny Ocean, the movie would work just as well. I don't think it was necessary to tie it into that. But again, nowadays, it's got to be tied to something, or a remake or a superhero movie. But it's an okay movie. It's okay. Like, if you've never seen it before and it's on, watch it. You're not going to hate yourself for watching it. You're never going to watch it again, chances are. At least I won't. It's just ultimately, like a lot of the ones that end up being our bad choices, forgettable.
Yeah, and I think it's forgettable, but even when I was watching it the second time, I still had a pleasant time watching it. I think that I consistently had fun with, like, all the banter. It's not incredibly, like, laugh out loud funny. I don't think the most I laughed out loud is really some of the stuff near the end with Anne Hathaway. Like, her romancing Richard Armitage, I think, is so fucking funny. Them just like, want to play a card game and shit like that, I think is really funny. And I think that's interesting because, like, it's her playing, I think, a bit into the weird kind of role people put her in when she was, like, winning awards for Les Mis, where, like, everyone hated Anne Hathaway for, like, a year or so.
Odd.
I don't get it. She's great. Yeah, she's a wonderful actress. And I think she kind of played into that in a really funny way in this part. Awkwafina, like you mentioned, I think is another standout, where just she plays this, grifter who keeps stealing things off people. The whole scene in the subway is phenomenal.
Yep.
where she just is like getting that order, and then it's like, hey, can I have my watch back? And hers too. She is getting better and better. See The Farewell, if it's anywhere near you. It's so great. I cried and laughed so much. It's a great movie. But as for this one, I think it's like you mentioned, I think all the people do a fine job what they're asked of, which isn't a lot. I think Gary Ross shouldn't be getting these big projects, really. I think he's a very underwhelming director on every regard. But yeah, it's fine.
Well, you would think the fucking Free State of Jones would include Hollywood in to maybe not give this guy movies.
I mean, I guess then again, maybe he's one of those guys where it's just like, oh, he's efficient and gets everything in on time. That lasts you a while.
Like a Frankenheimer type of thing.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's just like, hey, come in, you do your thing, and it's all on time, on budget, and it doesn't cost us that much. Fine. And it's just an example where it's like, I'm perfectly fine with, like, having, ladies come out there and do mediocre, fine summer blockbuster movies. There are plenty of those starring dudes. But at the same time, let's also give them, like, some real standout, better projects of quality. Much like our next film, which is of a lot of great qualities. I would argue, Hanna.
You're dead. Right now.
Tell me again.
Adapt or die.
Think on your feet.
Even when I'm sleeping. I'm ready.
All you have to do is flip that switch. What do you want, Mason?
I need you to do things my agency will not let me do. Sometimes children are bad people, too.
Did she turn out as you hoped?
Better.
So Hanna came out April 8th, 2011. It is an action film made by and starring a bunch of people who you wouldn't expect in an action movie.
Would you call this an action movie, honestly?
I would argue it is, but what I think is so interesting is that it's made by Joe Wright, who before and after this would do a lot of period costume dramas. Prior to this, he did the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice and Atonement, which would explain a certain cast member. And then after this, he would go on to do stuff like Anna Karenina and the Gary Oldman Churchill movie, The Darkest Hour, or as I call it, Big Mama's House 4, Churchill's in Session.
Accurate.
Yes. What I like about him doing this is, like, he's most known for, like, doing these big costume dramas that have like, gorgeous, like, choices in costume and a lot of one takes. Like, especially, like, Atonement was famous for that, like, the big long take with James McAvoy on the beach and everything. And him coming to do, like, basically what is an action story and turning it into what he has described, and I think really shows, is basically like a fairy tale of intense action. I think is such an interesting choice. It's what I love about like a director going to a genre they're not really familiar with and putting their unique spin on it, because it's an action movie, but unlike really any that were released at the time or even since. It's such a unique beast.
It's more like it's a movie about self-discovery, and I saw this at the theater when it first came out.
Same.
Because, I don't care. I'm a champion of Eric Bana. I think that guy gets some of the worst roles, but I think he's fantastic. Mm-hmm. And he's really good in this movie.
Yes.
So I went and saw this, and I was blown away by this movie. I was absolutely blown away. From the score, which is fucking just amazing, to the shots, to the acting, to everything. I mean, this is just such a slept-on movie, which is crazy to me because it came out, and I mean, it was almost instantly in the $5 bin at like Walmart when it came out on video. Like, you could find it super cheap. And it went to all the streaming services. Now, I haven't watched any of the new show, so I can't speak on that, but I just think this movie is so underrated. I love this movie. And Saoirse Ronan is just fucking amazing.
Right, who had broken out with Atonement and had requested Joe Wright for this particular gig. Interestingly, before him, it was going to be either Danny Boyle or Alfonso Cuarón, both of which would have been very interesting. Probably very different from this movie.
Yeah, Alfonso Cuarón would have been actually pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Danny Boyle and all, but I would really like to see Alfonso Cuarón spin on this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but I do love at the same time with Joe Wright doing... Like, have you seen Wright's other movies?
I've seen Atonement. I think I've seen The Pride and Prejudice, too, because Heather's really into that. Mm-hmm. But I don't think I've seen any of the newer stuff. So, no, I don't think I've seen anything of his since this.
Or his other more explicit fairy tale, Pan.
Oh, no.
Did
he do that?
That was him, too.
With Hugh Jackman?
With Hugh Jackman, yep.
I shan't be watching that.
No, listen to me on We Forgive You. I talked all about it. It's pretty much all you need to hear.
But I shan't.
No, but that's an example where it's him kind of doing something different from his wheelhouse, and it feels like he's being sort of bombarded with all sorts of stupid ideas, versus this feels so much more intimate. I really think that's the biggest thing, is few action films feel as intimate as this is, where it's technically it's the plot of it, which involves Hanna, the title character, is played by Saoirse Ronan. She's been raised by her father, Eric Bana, in the woods, basically. But it's hinted at that she's some sort of genetically enhanced sort of child who was part of a government experiment, and he keeps saying, we've been training in the woods for so long, and I taught you all these languages and all this other stuff. As soon as you feel ready, you can flip this switch, and the people who have been trying to find us and have murdered your mother ages ago will come and track us down. And she decides to do that, and that signals our topic of the day, Cate Blanchett, as what I affectionately would call Tommy Lee Jones with the Miss Krabappel hair.
Yo, she's a dastardly villain, though.
Oh, she's so great. And
she's just... Oh, you hate her so much.
Right, yeah, and she chases Eric Bana and Saoirse Ronan down and enlists a few people, including another great example of I wouldn't expect this casting, but it's great, Tom Hollander. I
love him as Isaacs. He stole the movie for me the first time I watched it, and he almost stole the movie for me again this time.
Right, and I know Tom Hollander is he's usually a guy who appears as British guys in stuff suits, in a lot of movies. He's all over the place.
Most people would know him as the bad guy in the second and I think third Pirates movies.
Yes, right. He was the sort of
the head of
the British naval fleet.
Yeah.
You would recognize him. He's one of those guys. But he is completely unrecognizable as a weird club owner who wears tracksuits and has bleach blonde hair and too much eyeliner. It's so unsettling. Oh, yeah. And he has probably the best theme of the movie in terms of what you were talking about, the score by the Chemical Brothers, who is an electronic band, who this is their first score, and they haven't done one since, and it's a bummer because the score is great. I completely agree about the score, especially that main theme he whistles all the time. I love.
Yeah, me too. And in the scene where he goes in the tent and the little boy wakes up, and I can't speak German, obviously, but he's like, "It's the Sandman. Go back to sleep." I could not go back to sleep. Fuck that. I'm like, what? What is going on here?
Well, that's what, and the thing is, really watching it this time, I got the fairy tale structure of it so much more, because based on that story, it's this huntsman takes a princess into the woods to raise on his own because he fears that she will be succumbed by the queen, who then comes back and enlists her new huntsman, in the form of Tom Hollander, to track them down. It's so this beat for beat structure of a fairy tale.
Oh, absolutely.
And even like a lot of the imagery, obviously, like I love the set piece of it being like this abandoned theme park near the end. That whole so creepy, so unsettling. Then again, I also love like seeing abandoned amusement park photos on the internet. That's just a weird aesthetic thing that I love, and I love that idea that like it's this long abandoned, like it looks like it's been abandoned for just long enough to where you can see some signs people once were there, but still completely alien at the same time.
Like 10 to 15 years, nobody.
Right, it almost looks post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, right. I agree. And then the fucking weird dude who they call Grim that runs the place.
Yes,
or is still there. Dude, he's so weird, but he's like you love him at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And he's basically like the wizard who's enlisted
to
try and help them out. And I found out that guy actually, in Inglourious Basterds, he played Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did not recognize him at all.
Yeah, I knew that. I only knew it because as watching, like, how do I know this fucking guy? How do I know this guy? Well, that's how. I love the family. Well, I mean, Jason Fleming is fantastic.
Oh, and I have a big thing for Olivia Williams. I think she's been so criminally underutilized her whole career.
Oh, she's so incredibly underutilized.
Yeah.
She is such a fantastic actress.
And even the two kids are also great, especially
they really are.
I really like the relationship that she has with the young girl in that family, where initially she's sort of like, oh, you're sort of like my pet that I can bring around, and it's just like, oh, you're weird, you're a token that I can bring around, and then they have this genuine friendship that almost grows into something a bit more than that, and I like that they kind of just stop there. It almost feels like a summer romance that happens at a camp.
Right, I agree, and it also shows us just how young they are, and they don't know what their feelings are yet, and
and Hanna has no human contact outside of her dad until these people.
She doesn't know what television is.
Nope.
She's read about electricity, and by the way, Saoirse Ronan kicks all sorts of ass in this movie.
Oh, dude, that scene where she escapes out of the detention cell thing. That whole sequence is so well put together. It's like it's a combination of these super huge long takes, and then also like these great bits where like Saoirse Ronan's like running, and then he'll cut again to like a slightly closer shot, and then cut right again to a slightly closer shot. It almost feels kind of like a Run Lola Run thing. It feels much more sort of European in its construction of the action.
Yeah, absolutely. And Eric Bana's won her when he's leaving the airport and goes down to the subway.
Yeah, what I like about the thing is, some people have accused the Joe Wright of like doing these one takes. It's like, oh, it feels way more masturbatory, like he's doing it just for the feat of doing a one take.
I think it builds tension.
Right, it builds tension and also really shows the character sort of like discovering things about the environment along with you. And it's unbroken in that way. I love the way that's done in any of his movies. Even Pan has some really good one shots, as bad as that movie is.
God.
And particularly like that shot, or also the flashback thing with Cate Blanchett shooting down the car.
Yeah.
An amazing shot where like especially the bit where she like looks into the broken billboard and then we go right to the hole and all this other shit. So good.
The thing is, there was no question in this movie, though, in that scene in the subway, that Eric Bana was absolutely going to kill all of those people. That's why I always say he's so underrated for me. Like, a lot of people, Munich, but I think he did the fucking Hulk, dude. He did the Hulk, and I think that really fucked him.
Unfortunately, yeah, because we may talk about it at some point in the future, but I think his Hulk is underrated.
I definitely agree. I think it's got such a weird aesthetic to it.
There will never be a superhero movie like it again.
No.
Never,
I 100% agree. But to back on our topic, especially with Cate Blanchett, the second she's on the screen that she is the most dangerous woman in the planet other than Hanna. Like, because she just has full reign. She can do whatever she wants, black ops, whatever you want to call it, and she is merciless. She will kill and do whatever she needs to do.
Right. I think especially the moment you kind of see that, it's a very subtle thing with her, but the bit where she's first walking into the office building and they like bring up some sort of innocuous thing, she's like, oh, whatever, and then she goes up the stairs.
Oh, she's terrified.
She's terrifying where it's like she's completely straight. There's no move in her posture from when she's standing, but her legs go up and down in such a deliberate, almost disturbing way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they give her the file saying, oh, he was paying to Eric Heller, aren't you his case handler? She's like, oh, Heller, yeah, I'll take care of it. And she's standing out, she walks up the stairs deliberately, and then she's staring out the window, and she's like, fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. This is going to crush me if I don't take care of this. Mm-hmm. Which, She did, and I mean, the first time I saw him, I'm like, oh man, because I didn't want Eric Bana to die. But I'm like, yeah, of course he has to die, because then that gives Hanna her comeuppance. That gives her even more of a reason to do what she does.
Yeah, and I love especially, like, their last scene together is so heartbreaking with Saoirse Ronan and Eric Bana. That's such a great example of, like, that sort of, imposter adopted kid thing, where it's just like, you're not my real dad. It's like, but I raised you this whole time, and I was trying to protect you from something. And how the moment where she hears that shot and she just knows, like, he's dead is like...
She instantly drops to her knees.
Yeah,
instantly.
It's brutal.
It's so heartbreaking.
Especially with, like, Cate Blanchett. I think her standout sequence is when she's interrogating the whole family, and you show each individual technique of how she interrogates people.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, she's trying to be, like, down to earth with Jason Fleming. She's kind of trying to be on level with the sort of back and forth tactics of Olivia Williams. She's completely berating that poor girl. I feel so bad for that fucking girl.
And then she's baby talking the boy. Well,
Yes.
not baby talking, but, like, acting like a kindergarten teacher almost. You like her, don't you? Don't worry, I won't tell nobody. I just want to protect her. Oh, and they do that shit. That's the thing that makes it more real, that they do. In fact, they brought in like an ex-CIA agent to train her.
Right.
But this is their tactics.
Especially that bit where he says, like, is she in trouble? Oh, in the worst kind, honey. And that, to even speak to your accent thing, like, that isn't a distinctive Southern accent. It's like a mush of every Southern accent in one, but it almost works to make her more sinister, because you're not quite sure what dialect she's from. I think it's a great example where it's like, it's not necessarily a realistic accent, but it's one that, like, makes you more intimidating and works for the character.
I mean, that's my only flaw, really, with this whole movie. I don't know that was inherently written in the character to make her sound like she could be from any region, or she just can't pull off a Southern accent.
Well, if nothing else, I think that it works for the movie because it's like I mentioned, this is, while an action movie that takes place technically in our reality, it is also a fairy tale story. It's a fantasy of this, young girl, as you mentioned, discovering herself, but coming out of the woods and coming into the big bad city where the queen is after her this whole time. I think it adds to sort of the weird fairy tale nature of the whole movie.
I mean, yeah. Okay, I'll give you that. Because this movie is very odd. The way it's shot, it is not structured like a typical action movie whatsoever. It's not structured like a typical drama, or it's literally structured as a coming of age tale, and then just has moments of brutal violence thrown in, and just a crazy cast of characters. So, okay, I'll give you that. You know what? You got me. You get one out of me.
And now my job is done.
Don't you ever fucking try it again.
But yeah, even talking about the structure thing, I love how we contrast the opening and the ending of the movie, where you have, like, completely white tundra surface, and she's chasing after this deer, and the whole, like, I just missed your heart thing, and how that contrasts later on when she's being chased by Cate Blanchett in this, like, overgrown, weedy forest that she's unfamiliar with, but she still gets the best of her. And that final shot where she shoots Cate Blanchett, then immediately cut to Hanna, is such a great final shot.
Well, yeah, I love when movies use that trope, too, where they basically repeat the opening at the end.
Yes.
And it works perfect. You wouldn't want this movie to end any other way.
No.
Like, I don't want to see what happens next to Hanna. I really don't. I'd rather my imagination go. I don't want to see her all of a sudden assimilated or living with that family or going to high school or anything. I don't want to know that. Because A, that'd be impossible almost for that character. And B, just let me decide.
Right, yeah. The few glimpses we get of her interacting, like, I love the whole date sequence that she does with the girl where they go off with those guys. It's just like, it almost breaks that dude's neck. Just like, this was fun. They fucking go. It's endearing, but also it leads to that whole, like I said, the sort of badassery. It does a great job of balancing out how, like, she's a genuine threat this whole time, but she is still just, like, this young girl who wants to experience things that she hasn't before. There's a huge tragedy. It's this whole thing of, like, I'm so badass and that's my curse. She's like fucking Wolverine.
Well, yeah, in a way, sure. I mean, I guess she is a mutant.
Who was off in the fucking woods in the tundra, and she was raised by an adopted parent who kind of fucked her up.
Fights Bruce Banner a lot.
Right, of course. And Cate Blanchett's Hella, I guess. So hey, we're everyone's in the Marvel movie.
It's MCU. Have you watched the show?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
I
don't
don't
know if I
have
want
much
to.
interest. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to see Joel Kinnaman.
Oh, is that who they got?
Yeah, he's the Eric Bana part.
Oh, wow. That's such a downgrade.
And then his Muriel Enyos or whatever, the one who was his partner in The Killing, is the Cate Blanchett part.
Okay. I mean,
I could see that more than I don't want to watch anything with Joel Kinnaman.
No, not very interesting.
Yeah, no, he's terrible.
But I guess we can spin that off into our final thoughts on Hanna. Adam.
I love this movie. I think this is one of the undersung, under-championed drama / thriller / action movie / art / whatever movies you want to call it. I think there's something in here for everyone. And unfortunately, it just didn't hit right when it came out. And I think this is a criminally underseen, underrated film. I absolutely love it, and I absolutely will revisit this one again. I think this is a fantastic, fantastic film.
Yeah, I completely agree. Obviously, I picked it as my good pick. I think because it's such an odd move for, I think, everybody involved, from Joe Wright to Saoirse Ronan, to get really Irish with it, Cate Blanchett, even Eric Bana. It feels so distinctive and like this weird gem that couldn't have really happened at any other time before or since. I think it's such an odd beast that I'm glad to see exists in the world. At the same time, that also is why I guess it didn't really hit. Because especially I remember the ads, like especially for this show, I pulled up a trailer that you heard a 30-second clip of 20 minutes ago on the show. And they were definitely really advertising as like, oh, it's a hardcore action movie starring this young lady. And I can see why that wouldn't really appeal to a lot of people. It didn't bomb or anything. It made...
No, but it wasn't.
No, it wasn't a huge splash. It's $30 million budget, made about 65. That's fine.
Ooh, that's not great, dude.
It did decently. I'm not saying it did great. Like, it's its budget and a half.
Well, you got to throw in advertising and everything too. So you got to figure $30 million for a production budget, add in another $10 million to $15 million for advertising.
I mean, even then, I don't remember it being advertised that much at the same time.
It was advertised enough, though. I mean, enough.
Well,
okay, so say it's $5 million. So say it goes up to $35 million. So at best, this movie made $30 million, which $30 million is not nothing to turn your nose up at, but
also for a $30 million budget.
No, I agree, but it's not considered a hit.
And I never said it was a hit. I just said it did fine, and I think that's the thing.
I'm just projecting here, Thomas.
But I think I was doing a final thought. Anyway, yeah, I think this is it's a very underrated little gem of a movie, and it lacks sort of any specific genre, and some may consider that a bug. I consider it a feature. I think that makes it such a weird beast that I wouldn't be able to be really imitated, and no one really tried, and I'm kind of glad. It's just one that, like you mentioned, more people need to at least seek out. And my only hope with that Amazon show is it at least made some people be like, hey, I want to watch this movie. And yet Amazon isn't streaming it on Prime for free. You would figure they would do that.
They're not?
They're like, it's the whole thing where you got like rent it for $3.99.
Oh, then they definitely lost my dollar. I mean, what the fuck? You're going to put out original programming on Amazon Prime and charge people to watch it after they're already paying?
Oh, no. I'm saying the movie wasn't...
Oh, well, then that's fine.
Well, but I just feel like if you're going to have that to stream...
Have the show, have the movie.
Right, yeah, the fucking... Netflix is doing that with Dark Crystal. You couldn't spring for that, Amazon? How much are the rights to stream that movie? Come on.
Yo, and in fact, when I went to rewatch this again, I checked all the streaming services, because Hanna used to be on, like, several of them all the time. Mm-hmm. And now, of course, the show comes out, so, we're not going to... Yeah, no, you got to pay to watch the original. Go fuck yourself. I paid to watch the original.
as anyone should, and as you all should, but it would just be more inviting to people. It's like, oh, the TV show's here, I might as well watch the movie. And from what I've heard, even the TV show is just kind of a remake of the movie.
100%, yeah, that's what I heard too.
Just stretched out over like 10 episodes or whatever, yeah.
I'm never going to watch it.
Right, and I would hope to see Joe Wright do more riskier things like this, just something really outside his comfort zone, because I like the costume stuff that he still does. Like Darkest Hour was good. Gary Oldman earned his Oscar for being in a fat suit, though he really earned it for his whole career inside of that fat suit.
I know.
But I would like to see him do something like, other genre things. I hope Pan didn't dissuade him from doing that. I'd love to see him.
I think Pan might have been his attempt at doing a big budget like blockbuster. They expected that movie to do well.
Oh my god! Oh, didn't.
Boy!
But I would like to see him like maybe just do something else that's like similarly small like this, like even like a horror movie. I think would be interesting with him, especially like you have him do like a slasher. I think could be really interesting.
Or a period piece horror film.
Or of course, yes, that like something.
You mentioned like a
style.
torment, like a gothic horror.
Right, or even something more like a Jane Eyre, where it's like there's a gothic feel to it. It might not necessarily be straight out horror. I could see him doing that,
right?
Too. Yeah,
that will work.
Yes, but this was the movie that brought me on his radar, and I think he's a very underrated director in general. And I think he's the current master of the one take, the new master at least. Obviously, people like Scorsese and others are still around doing it, but he's it's kind of made it his distinctive stamp, and he does it in a way, like I said, that really explores the world and keeps you engrossed with the characters. And so, yeah, Hanna, great movie. Go seek it out if you haven't.
Real quick, I just thought of it. Joe Wright, a Jack the Ripper movie.
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah.
That would be really awesome.
That would really work. Because there hasn't been really a good Jack the Ripper movie.
There never has been.
I mean, the closest, and this is even stretching, is Time After Time.
That's really stretching. A lot of people would say From Hell, and I'm like, get the fuck out
No,
of
I
here.
would not. I would not be one of them.
No,
but then again, you have David Warner playing Jack the Ripper against Malcolm McDowell, H.G. Wells. That's pretty awesome. Come on. And that is the end of our double feature discussion about the two Cate Blanchett films. But before we go, we have some feedback to read on our Facebook and Twitter page at DEDBpod. Every week we ask you on Mondays to put out the feeler about like, hey, what are your favorite, least favorite examples of whatever topic we're doing? And for this time, obviously, we asked you about Cate Blanchett, so we had some people chime in. First, James Rodriguez says, Carol is one of the best recent romances, with Blanchett doing outstanding work opposite a brilliant Rooney Mara. It's also worth mentioning how much she puts into her one scene in Hot Fuzz, all while wearing a white mask, and is one of the brightest spots of the Ocean's 8 lineup.
Now, I remember when Hot Fuzz came out, and that like wasn't a known thing that was Cate Blanchett, and I swear to God, I'm watching going, I think that's Cate Blanchett. Like, and every time I rewatch, I've seen that movie so many times, like, I think that's Cate Blanchett. Then finally it was like, oh, it is Cate Blanchett. I'm like, oh.
That's one of those I didn't find out until the audio commentary where Edgar Wright talked about it. I'm like, what? Exactly. Great. For sure, yeah. And Carol, like I mentioned, it was my other choice, and I do agree. I think that is a phenomenal film. Basically, if you don't know, it's a movie that takes place in like the 1950s, and it's about Cate Blanchett and Rooney Mara have a lesbian relationship, and obviously that's kind of frowned upon. It sounds like something you might have seen before, but it's such a really, especially subtle movie, and the two of them act so well off each other. It's really heartbreaking. That's a great movie.
Yeah, I definitely want to see it. I remember when the ads came out, but the thing is, it's definitely one of those movies I didn't seek out right away because I knew I'm going to get emotional watching this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm like,
bring your tissues.
Uh-huh.
Steve Wandling said, I'm not there, and I love when she's what she's done with Todd Haynes. And for those of you might not remember, I'm Not There is the Bob Dylan movie, where you had several people playing Bob Dylan, like Christian Bale, Heath Ledger, Richard Gere.
I hate that movie.
I am not a huge fan of that movie, but her segment is the best part of that whole movie.
No, 100%. Hers and Ben Wishaw's are the best. Yes. The rest is like, get over yourself, Richard Gere. For God's sakes. No,
Isn't that most of Richard Gere's recent career, though? Just get over yourself.
I remember watching it, to go off on a little tangent because it's on topic, an interview with Richard Gere when I'm Not There was coming out. He's like, oh yeah, I remember we used to hang out and just pump Bob Dylan through our headphones and just jam to it. Nobody jammed to Bob Dylan. It was protest music. Nobody sat in a dorm room. It was like, fuck yeah, Bob Dylan. Wah, 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 wah. You know, like that shit didn't happen. God damn it. Richard Gere is not Dennis Quaid for me, or John Travolta.
Or John Voight.
Yeah, fuck. Why do you gotta bring him up?
Because you're bringing up all your other assholes.
Oh. No, you know what? Richard Gere might be on John Voight level. He might be on that level.
In that you can watch some of his movies.
I can watch some of them, but it also depends on who else is in the movie.
Well, especially if it's like some of his older work. I think post-Chicago, he's made a lot of unwatchable movies.
I'd say Chicago and pre-Chicago.
I mean, no, I guess like but I'd say he's made more consistent terrible choices.
Yeah.
Post-Chicago is all I'm saying.
He's pretty awful.
But to get back to, like, obviously with Cate Blanchett in that movie, she completely disappears and, like, she is Bob Dylan. Like, everyone else is playing some weird interpretation of Bob Dylan. There's some bullshit thing about, like, oh, it's his music, it has different whatever. But
such an egotistical movie.
But she genuinely is just, like, embodying that guy as just, like, a person, and it does a phenomenal job with it. Especially, like, her playing off of, isn't it David Cross?
Yeah.
Right, the whole... It's so fun. Like, that whole... I would definitely... If you don't watch that whole movie, but watch that segment if you can. It's a real big display of her, especially as an actress. And then Stephen D. at Waiting FTH says, don't really have a best or worst, to be frank. I'll pretty much watch anything that Cate Blanchett does. Also, aspiring Oz accent people, here's a good one to aim for instead of the Steve Irwin type. Also, if you haven't seen the episode of Inside the Actors Studio with her on it, try and find it.
I don't know if I saw that one. I've seen most of the Inside the Actors Studios. I don't remember if I saw Cate Blanchett's or not.
No, I don't believe I have either, but then again, I did.
Yeah, me neither.
I did love that show.
Oh, it's great.
And you heard Lipton retired.
Yeah, but just... I love James Lipton, because of the Will Ferrell impersonation.
Of course.
So it just made it funnier. But yeah, that was a good show. I'd like to watch that one.
Well, and I just love, like, with James Lipton, he would always come on and just, like, the overemphasis on things where it's like, you're clearly, like, someone who knows about the craft of acting but isn't much of an actor. But you really fancy... What's your favorite word? Well, then wait, let me put the spin on it. What's your favorite curse word?
What you've done is transcendent. It is beautiful, and it sets the tone for the whole culture. You're like, what? Wait a minute. How was it being in K9 Cop? It's like Jim Belushi or something. Like, wait a minute, stop.
I mean, to be fair, the best one, the best two are the episodes he did with Dave Chappelle. There's the one where he interviewed Dave Chappelle and the one where Dave Chappelle interviewed him. Those are great. Yep. Those are phenomenal.
The Ben Stiller episode was good too.
Yes, I mean, there's obviously, like, Robin Williams one's really good. There's a bunch of... The best thing about Inside the Actors Studio is if you look in the crowd several times, you can see a young Bradley Cooper in the audience. Yep. And he even asked Sean Penn a question at one point.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah. We also had some feedback in reference to our last episode about Guillermo del Toro. Ross Weaver at Dreaming Weaver says, checked the del Toro episode out. Loved it even though I haven't seen either film. Good takes throughout.
Oh, well, thank you, buddy.
Yeah. And then we had some feedback from Dave West in reference to an earlier episode, our Movies That Deserve Remakes episode. Says, I checked out the Highlander Dr. Moreau episode and really enjoyed it. You guys have a great chemistry, and it was an entertaining listen. You're on my playlist now.
Oh, well, you know what, buddy? You're in my heart now.
I mean, you could put his podcast, the Needless Things podcast, in your heart now as well.
That's already on my spot. I'm not going to, come on, I'm not going to give him free promotion, man. It's already on my, I already listened to it.
Well, and admittedly, Dave's a buddy of mine, and we've done plenty of DragonCon panels in the past together, and in the future, put a pin in that.
Oh!
Yes. Well, thank you for all that feedback, everybody. We also want to thank Chris Oliver for the intro and outro music used for our show. Listen to more of his music at chrisoliver.bandcamp.com. Thanks to Emily Scarta for the art for our show. She accepts commissions at fiverr.com/eescarta. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook, as I mentioned, at DEDBpod, where every Monday I put out that feeler about the good and bad movies. And also on doubleedgedoublebill@gmail.com. You can send us feedback, or I'm on my own individual Twitter account at NotTheWho'sTommy, and I also do some writing at marianithomas.wordpress.com. You can read right now a Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark review, which I will say is a better gateway horror movie than the subject of our last episode, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, which I found out after we had that whole discussion about, like, oh, can kids get into it? Mm-hmm. That movie was rated R.
What? Don't Be Afraid of the Dark is R?
I know.
Wait, what?
I know!
Is it really?
Yes!
No. Is it?
I know.
I don't like this. That doesn't make any sense.
Not at all, no. I'm just scrolling through finding out what it was rated R for.
I am actually looking right now.
It is rated R for violence and terror.
Oh, that is horse shit. There's no reason that much is rated R. PG-13, okay, I'll give you that. R? Oh my god.
And that's the thing is that, especially after seeing Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, that's a PG-13, and they push it pretty hard.
Of course they do.
Yeah. But in a way that still works. I would say that is, not to spoil my review, but it's good if you're trying to get a kid who kind of likes horror aesthetic stuff, but hasn't seen something really scary in like the age range of like preteen. It's a really good set for
you got you, like 11, 12, 13 years old.
Yes, it's perfect for like that set who are like want to see a scary movie, be engaged by it. But you can read more about that at marianithomas.wordpress.com. And you can also catch me at DragonCon this Labor Day weekend from August 30th to September 2nd. DragonCon's over in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'll be doing various panels there. The schedule is still slightly TBD at this point, hasn't been set in stone. But as of yet, I can tell you that one I'll be doing is the Apocalypse Now, a Good Omens fan panel, which is scheduled to be on Friday, August 30th at 7 p.m. Then I've got The Blair Witch Legacy with Dave West and the Other Needless Things podcast people, Friday at 10 p.m. And there's also The Horror of Scooby-Doo, which will be Saturday at 1 p.m. And the Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror, which will be Saturday at 8:30 p.m. and will be followed by a screening of the film with a live music accompaniment.
Ooh.
Yes.
Nice.
And there'll also be a What We Do in the Shadows fan panel, which will be Sunday at 1 p.m. as well.
Have you watched the show, Thomas?
I've been watching the show in preparation.
So good.
That pilot's so really great.
It's so funny.
Yes. For sure, on that. And those are all, keep in mind, in the Westin Hotel. Of the 5 hotels that DragonCon is in, it'll be at the Westin, either in the Chastain or the Peachtree. Most of those are in the Peachtree room, but the Chastain is where I'll be doing the Good Omens panel for the Urban Fantasy track.
The Chastains of the Jessicas. Yes.
That's the first thing I thought when I did a panel in that room.
Of course.
Fucking Jessica. Where are you, Jessica? But yeah, I'll be doing all that. And Adam, you can find pulling off a heist of one.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not doing anything. Oh, no. I'm just laying around farting on my couch. Like, don't even bother following me. You're going to be bored.
Well, right, that's exactly what you're doing. Or it's the perfect alibi for a heist.
You've said too much.
Well, before I get murdered by Adam, please subscribe to us on iTunes, even though there might not be episodes afterward, if Adam might kill me after this. Subscribe to us on iTunes or Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher. We're on all the podcast things where you can listen. And, just also make sure to rate and review, or at least share the show, because that gives us more visibility.
All you gotta do is hit a share link, man. That's all I'm asking for. You legitimately don't have to do anything else.
No.
So it doesn't make you a square if you share a show. You're still cool. You still go to the soda shop or whatever afterwards.
Get the malts.
Yeah, right. In your little deuce coupe or whatever you kids are driving. Just help us out.
All right, and we're getting pretty delirious here, so we're going to go ahead and do the picking for our next episode. If you're new, each week Adam and I trade off on the good and bad quality, because we of course have a good and a bad feature. This time, for our next topic, in honor of, it's been 20 years since a certain big year, Adam. The year is, what did Prince say we should party like it's, Adam?
Like it's 1999,
yeah,
baby.
2000. Yeah, exactly, yes. We are doing an episode about 1999, arguably one of the best years in film of the 20th or any other century.
It's insane. The amount of hits and the amount of just cult classics that came out of the year is mind-blowing.
Yes, and of course, you had the toughest thing of you had all sorts of good films, a smorgasbord of good films for your 2 good picks. And I had my 2 bad picks, which, admittingly, it's weird where, like, there are a couple pretty obvious ones, and then there's just, like, completely forgettable bullshit. Like, everyone remembers Mickey Blue Eyes, right? Exactly.
Yeah, with Hugh Grant and James Caan, I remember that shit. I think I'm the only one.
Great movie, right? Has lasted the test of time.
Yeah, it was something.
Fuck the Iron Giant or Fight Club. Not to spoil what you might pick, Adam.
Yeah, right. No, God damn it, the Iron Giant. Anyways, go ahead.
Well, you have your 2 good picks, and you've assigned each a number between 1 and 10. I've done the same thing for my 2 bad picks. And so then both of us will each pick a number 2, 1, and 10 for the others' picks, and then we end up getting somewhere in the range of our good and our bad feature. So, Adam, for your 2 good picks, I'm gonna go with number... there's 3 of them in this particular year. 9.
Ooh, at number 10, I have, which, to be honest, I don't know a lot of the Jim Jarmusch movies, but I went Ghost Dog Way of the Samurai.
Oh, yeah. I'm a big fan of this one. I also haven't seen a lot of Jarmusch, but I really dig this one.
I really love Ghost Dog to the point I bought the book. But
we'll get into this, Adam, when we do
I know.
our discussion.
God damn it, I love that movie.
Yeah, so but what was your other choice?
At number 2, I had 8mm with Nicolas Cage, which is a movie about snuff films and porn.
Yeah, we got a good one. I'm glad we got a good one.
Yeah, well, go fuck yourself.
No, it's been a while since I've seen 8mm. I'm not sure. It's one of the better Joel Schumacher movies, I guess we can say, which isn't maybe saying a lot.
It's not saying a lot.
No.
Yeah.
But now for my 2 bad picks, I'm at number 2, 1, and 10.
Oh, I'm going to go number 3.
Okay. At number 2, I have a vehicle starring a man that we both love dearly. We've talked about some of his movies on here, but I would argue this is the one that killed his sort of reign in the 80s and 90s as a big action star. Arnold Schwarzenegger in End of Days.
Oh, come on. What are you talking about? That's bullshit. No, it's a terrible film.
Well, I mean, you can say all sorts of great Arnold quotes from End of Days, right?
No. I just know his name is Jacob Jericho, which is one of the fucking stupidest names ever.
Oh, there's so much stupid stuff, including how it ties into 1999. It's one of the most stupid things I've ever heard. We'll get into that. We'll get into it next week. But at number 8, I had a movie that I remember really wanting to see as a kid because of the star and because it advertised as like a goofy, fun kids comedy. Robin Williams' Bicentennial Man.
Oh my God, what a dark, depressing movie.
Yes, that's the thing, is that when I went into it as a kid, it's like, oh man, it's gonna be, fun, and it's gonna be Robin Williams having fun. And it's like, oh hey, life is eternal for a robot, and you see all the people you know and love die. And it's like, oh. And, I would argue, someone who did that better with an underrated movie, AI, I think is a much better version of that movie.
I love AI. I think AI is a really good movie.
Yes. Also one that I went into as a child thinking, like, oh, this is gonna be, Steven Spielberg robot movie, it's gonna be a lot of fun. That movie's not fun. that one's also really fucked up.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
But okay, so End of Days and Ghost Dog Way of the Samurai. That's an interesting one.
I'm excited. I think we definitely have one that no one talks about, and the other that everyone's forgotten.
Yes, and to delineate which you'll have to listen to next time. But until then, Adam, let's go ahead and run, because I've flipped the switch. They're coming after us, Adam. Run! Go!
Long lives the giant condor.